Hello, and welcome to this live broadcast on how to ask for feedback and what to do when you get it. I hope you find this useful. I thought it would be a good session to do because feedback is something we all need at whatever level we work, in whatever organization or whatever group or firm we work. We all need feedback. Feedback gives us data, gives us information, useful information about what we're doing, and that can really help us to improve our performance and work better with our colleagues. So feedback is a gift, I've heard it said. And so it also provides an opportunity for some conversations, and particularly workplace conversations, and it can really help to create a better working relationship if both people understand and use the feedback model. So that's why I thought this would be a handy little session for you, whatever level you happen to be at. So the first question would be, is there a right time to ask for feedback? And of course, I could say, yeah, it's always the right time to ask for feedback. And that's probably true. But there are some specific times where feedback is really, really useful and where it's really helpful to ask for feedback. So the first type of occasion that you would ask for feedback is when you've got an assessment or an annual appraisal or a conversation coming up, say, with a line manager or a leader. That's really important to your working life, to your career, and to your development. Very difficult to have a conversation like that without having any background feedback from anybody, because in that case, you're just relying on your own views and the views of the person that you're having that conversation with. So it may be that your organization has a structure, a format for gathering feedback or getting feedback before a conversation. And that's great. Definitely use that. But it may be that you have a weekly or a monthly conversation with your manager or even with your team. And just grabbing a little bit of feedback informally can really help to bring that conversation to life. So first off, formal situations or discussions. It's also really helpful, and this is something actually I've just made a note to myself to do because I don't do it enough, is after a project or an event. So when there's been a specific activity that you've been involved in, if you've done it maybe with people you don't normally work with, as well as the people you do, or there's an event that has happened, and where you have been able to add value, or you think you've been able to add value with your skills, over and above what you normally do in your day job, then that's a great opportunity to ask for feedback. And really, that is, I guess, when I said it's always a good time to get feedback, that's a bit of a caveat on that. I mean, what you don't want to be doing is asking for feedback all the time, because that's going to annoy people. So it's asking for feedback when there's something to ask about. So it may be, every day your colleague says, "Hey, Joe, that was a great job," and that's brilliant. That's confidence building and motivating, and that's great. It's not really feedback though, because feedback has got to be a bit more specific and a bit more example based to be really useful. So that's, is there a right time, or when is the best time to ask for feedback? And I guess the next question, and this is can be quite a challenge, is what do I say to get the best feedback? So what's the best way to make a request for feedback to your colleagues? I have found in my experience, and also through research, asking for feedback by saying, "Hey Joe, can you give me some feedback?" I found people don't really respond to that. A lot of people say, "No, I don't have any feedback." Or if you say, "Do you have any feedback for me?" they'll say no. So your question has to be more specific, I think, if you're going to get some valuable feedback from other people. So again, relating to something specific that you've done is much more useful. So it could be, hi Joe, I've just done that presentation that you've been sitting through. What worked really well? Tell me one thing that worked really well. Tell me something I could have done better. And just by making the feedback question more specific to the event, and also what can I do better, what I did really well, then that helps the person to immediately focus down and think about their experience of what you've asked for, and therefore make their feedback much more specific. If they give feedback that's more general and they say, yeah, you do great presentations, thanks, that's really great, tell me what about my presentations is great, and and have some questions ready to help them to break that down as well. Do I look at all the people in the audience enough? Do I do enough? Do I create enough visual in my presentation? Am I clear? Am I well prepared? The more specific you can get in your question, the better the feedback's going to be, and the more specific the feedback will be. The next question is, whose feedback is most valuable? Who should I ask for feedback? Should I ask my boss? Should I ask my peers? Should I ask the people that report to me? What's best? And I think the answer to that is, it depends on what you're asking about. So different people that you work with will have a different viewpoint of what it's like to work with you, and will be able to give you feedback on different aspects of your performance and behaviors. So your boss will be able to give you good feedback on how you're achieving what you have to achieve, how you're achieving your goals, and how successfully they can see you developing with those goals and delivering what you have to deliver. Peer feedback is slightly different. So the people that you work with at the same level will be looking for different things. They're not quite so concerned about your career or you're delivering your goals. Actually, they want to know what you're like to work with in a team of peers. And therefore, if you want feedback on your teamwork, on how effectively you share with your team, how confident the team are in how you deal with them, how you deal with difficult situations, then peers, people you work with, it's great to ask them for feedback. Their feedback on those areas will be really valuable for you. Similarly, if you have people who report to you, so if you're a team leader or a manager or a supervisor, then those people will be able to give you some great feedback on what it's like working for you and reporting to you. Because again, they see some similar skills, but they also see some slightly different skills. So for example, they'll be able to tell you how effectively you delegate. Do you treat everyone similarly? Does everyone in the team get an equal opportunity to shine? Do you give people enough praise in front of other people? So if you can see the differences, slight differences between who you ask for feedback and the type of feedback that they can give you. They're not hard and fast rules, but they're a guide as to the type of feedback that you can get from different groups of people that you work with. So moving on then to what are the best ways to request feedback? Well, we've talked about that in terms of what I would say, that how to put the question to the individual, how to put the request to your colleagues, best way to ask for feedback. But also, is it better to ask for feedback face-to-face or by email, or how do you do it? What's the most effective way? Again, it doesn't really matter how you do it. Informal is great. Face-to-face is really useful, particularly where you've got close relationships with people. So if you want feedback from someone you work closely with, it's a great idea to just ask them using the wording that I suggested earlier on. So a quick chat. Hey Joe, it would be great if you could give me feedback on how I dealt with the client in that particular situation. That would be really helpful. Email is fine, slightly more distant, I guess. So if maybe you want more formal written feedback, sending an email is a good way to ask for that, because if you ask in writing, people will tend to respond that way. Your organization, the people that you work for, may already have a feedback tool in place. So there are different types of feedback tools. So one would be where you give a quick response, give a quick 3 or 4 star or 5-star feedback. And that's a more general, encouraging type of feedback. You may also have access to a 360 type tool where you can send out a request to various people. And that's usually useful where you have got a formal requirement for feedback that's grouped together, and use that as your feedback gathering tool. So there are a number of ways that you can manage that process, and your organization should be able to help you with that. So the next and important question is, what do you do when you get feedback? So I've put in my introductory text, what do you do when you get brilliant feedback? And what do you do when you don't get brilliant feedback? And I think that's the reason why many of us don't ask for feedback in the first place. We're a little bit nervous about the feedback that we might get. Now, Marshall Goldsmith, who I'm sure you'll have heard of, who's a fantastic writer, coach, and has been writing brilliant books about feedback and coaching and people development for many years. In his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, he talks about when you get feedback, using feedback. For him, feedback is an absolutely critical tool for when you want to make a change. So the title of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. So if you want to get somewhere new, you have to do something different. And really using feedback is something he talks about a lot. And he says, when you ask for feedback and when you get feedback, say thank you and then shut up. Full stop. Don't say anything else. Because when we get feedback, when we get great feedback, that's great. Thanks so much. You feel great, right? If you get feedback that's maybe not what you were expecting or not so great, then you're bound to feel, we all feel a little bit taken aback. Oh, okay. So we do our best to say thanks for that feedback, but the reason I did it that way was, okay, so we all do it. We will say thanks for the feedback, and then we give the reason why. We justify what we did or what we do. And what that does, first of all, in our own consciousness, we're pushing that feedback away. By saying, yeah, but, we're telling ourselves that that feedback, there's an excuse, right? So the feedback is not really that helpful. I might just push it back. That's okay. And if the feedback is, again, if we get that feedback, the other thing we're doing is think about the other person who's given us that feedback, and we say, yeah, but, they're going to be taken aback and they're going to say, okay, you asked for feedback, I've given you the feedback, and now you're telling me no, or you're rejecting my feedback. And that's such a shame to do that, because you're going to lose out on great feedback now and also in the future. You can imagine that that person's not really going to be that enthusiastic the next time you ask them for feedback if you've said their feedback, yeah, but don't really get your feedback because there is a reason for it. So when you get brilliant feedback, say thanks. When you don't get brilliant feedback, say thanks. I'll take that on board. I'll reflect on that. And that immediately gives in your mind, I'm going to think about this. I will get some value from this feedback. It will also show your appreciation of the feedback to the person that's given it to you. And that's really key to what you do when you get feedback, whatever that feedback is. And then we would always recommend when you get feedback, reflecting on it, whether it's good or not, and asking for more detail. If somebody says, brilliant, you did a great job, thanks very much, what did I do? Tell me more about that feedback. Similarly, if you get feedback that's unexpected or not so positive, not so admiring, then again, thank you, I'll reflect on that. Go back and then ask more questions of that person. But don't make them feel that you're asking them questions that are not because you're not happy, but ask them open questions. And it's not an interrogation. You're trying to gather more information. And if you see feedback as an information gathering process, rather than something that is scary and not positive, then that will really help you to get great feedback and make use of that feedback, get data to help you improve wherever you need to. And remember, great feedback can also be empowering because it's telling you some of the great things that you do as well. So no need to be afraid of feedback. But the key thing, and as I said earlier, is to remember to ask for it. And that's something from doing this session today, that's something I'm going to do more of. I'm going to make a note to myself to ask my team and the people I work with for feedback more frequently than I do. And one thing that I didn't mention was feedback from clients and customers. And again, if you're in a job where you have close contact with clients and customers and you know them personally and you work with them on project-based, ongoing projects and activities, then it's great to get some feedback from them. And again, they will be in a position to give you feedback on the type of activities that you do when you're working with them. So feedback from these different people can give you a great overall view of how you're doing and can be a brilliant help for your development planning. That's it for today. If you have any questions on this session, please do direct message me on LinkedIn. I'll be delighted to have a chat or answer your question. And I look forward to seeing you on a forthcoming broadcast. More information about that will go out on LinkedIn. So best wishes and have a great day.